And we're going to start off with some fun topics today. We're going to talk wide receiver. And I asked you, was there anything you wanted to talk about on the show? You said you wanted to talk about who the number one wide receiver in fantasy is. And you also told me that it is one Justin Jefferson. So why is he the clear cut for you? Why is he the wide receiver one in fantasy in 2022?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a piece for NBC Sports Edge a couple weeks ago, kind of reviewing 2021 among receivers. And while it was a disappointing year for many top flight receivers, Justin Jefferson once again shined in an offense and a system that really wasn't designed to accentuate, his skill set and his ability to dominate. Like, despite all that, despite having a team that was satisfied running the ball on 2nd and long and 3rd and 5 and never really being super aggressive unless they were trailing late in the game. Jefferson still dominated his Whopper, which, I always look at on RotoViz. It was off the charts. He dominated air yards on his team, unlike any other receiver in the league. And I think all signs point to, the new coaching staff in Minnesota finally being ready and willing to use him to his full potential. And I think his full potential makes him like a clear and obvious, wide receiver one, the wide receiver one in fantasy.
And Denny, we had a draft that we did for OT recently in best ball where we took Cooper Kupp at the 102 with Jonathan Taylor still available. If Justin Jefferson is the number one wide receiver, how early should we be looking at him in drafts? I mean, can you take him with the number one pick?
I'm working myself up to that point, Shawn. Actually, I feel like I need a little more time to get there to like justify it completely, but I'm working on it. We're my interns in the back, I don't know if you see them, they're working on it very hard, and we're gonna get. I think we're gonna get to that point. I really do feel confident that he should be among the top 3 picks in any redraft league this year.
Yeah, and it's always when you get to this stage early in the season, if you can like feel that, it's a top 5 pick at this point, by July or August, you can definitely talk yourself into the 101.
Right.
And we're definitely going to move in that direction. Shawn mentioned Cooper Kupp. Obviously, you mentioned as well the situation. Me and Shawn had Justin Jefferson on a lot of rosters last year. We were well aware of the fact that he was not used optimally in a lot of situations. And obviously, Kirk Cousins being the quarterback and some of the play calling. Is there a factor into it that it's the play calling scenario that he's in, or how to build that confidence in Justin Jefferson?
Yeah, from what I've read, and Arif Hassan, the great Vikings beat writer for The Athletic, has written a lot about Kevin O'Connell's offensive scheme and his ideas and his goals for the offense. What he might take from his time with McVay to Minnesota. And I think all of those things point to a system that should be able to use Jefferson, not just as a deep ball, jump ball threat, which he's great at, and we all know that. Anybody who's seen him play, I'm not a film watcher, but you got to admit he's a dominant downfield receiver. But he also could conceivably, and I think is very likely to get those more intermediate looks and more of those easy fantasy points. It reminds me a little bit of like Stephon Diggs in his big 2020 season got a lot of easy fantasy points on intermediate targets. His profile, or his receiving profile, changed pretty drastically in 2021, where he had more volatile targets. It led to some big games, but it also led to a lot of very mediocre games that left you wondering, why did I take this guy in the first round or at the beginning of the second round? But I think that Jefferson could finally get those easy points to go along with the not so easy bigger points down the field.
And then when we're looking at players who might be in a situation to be in that tier, you mentioned him being there. We mentioned Kupp. Is there much of a gap between him and Kupp, and who might be in that kind of top 3 of a tier for you at the position?
Right. Yeah. I guess I will eventually have to make enemies of Cooper Kupp advocates on Twitter, because that's how it works. But I really don't. I have no issue, obviously, with taking Cooper Kupp first overall or second or third, whatever. He is both an extension of the Rams running game and their best downfield pass catcher, and you don't really get that too often. But that's what you get with Cooper Kupp. So yeah, I mean, I think Kupp and Jefferson are very close. I don't think, you know, Devontae Adams in Vegas, I don't think that he's in that bracket of receivers now.
And when you're talking about Jefferson as the 101 or as the wide receiver one, the upside there has to be pretty significant when we see how many receivers have been scoring in that 20-21 point per game range. And then Kupp, obviously last year with the monster season, really competitive with almost all sort of outside of Christian McCaffrey top running back seasons. In terms of upside, are you seeing Jefferson at that level where he could go 23, 24 points per game?
I think, you know, with a commitment to a more pass heavy, more aggressive approach, which I guess that's what I'm banking on here with the new Vikings regime, a more analytics based approach, say, after the Mike Zimmer era, where Mike Zimmer, you know, very casually dismissed any kind of analytical approach as a non-starter, which is very frustrating for a lot of fantasy folks. So I think that we are entering a new era of Vikings football. And all of Jefferson's peripheral numbers from last season really jump out. I included those obviously in my piece on NBC Sports Edge if folks would like to check those out. But I used a lot of RotoViz statistical measurements for, you know, for how dominant he was on his opportunities last year. I think if that can translate to a more aggressive, slightly more pass happy offense, sky's the limit.
Did you enjoy that clip? Make sure you hit that subscribe button to get more content from RotoViz. And of course, you can check out full-length podcasts at rotoviz.com/podcast. Available on all podcast platforms. Check out our wide range of content. Once again, rotoviz.com/podcast.